Welcome to Tabo Eminent Channel. The title Climate Change, Cooling or Warming. The scientific debate implies there is a major debate among scientists about whether the planet is warming or cooling. However, the scientific consensus is clear: Earth is warming due to human activities, primarily the release of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, CO2, from burning fossil fuels. For decades, scientists have studied the Earth's climate system, seeking to understand the forces that shape the planet's temperature and weather patterns. In the early 20th century, a small but growing number of researchers began to notice a warming trend, especially since the Industrial Revolution. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel. The cause: a sharp increase in greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide, from the burning of coal, oil, and natural gas. Today, overwhelming evidence shows that our planet is getting warmer, not cooler, and that human activity is the dominant driver behind this trend. From time to time, headlines or internet debates claim that the Earth is actually cooling, or that scientists are divided on the issue. These arguments often rely on isolated cold weather events or short-term dips in temperature. However, scientists emphasize that climate is measured over decades, not days. What about cooling claims? Short-term variability, like El Niño/La Niña or volcanic eruptions, can cause temporary cooling, but they don't change the long-term warming trend. Some earlier mid-20th century cooling, 1940s-1970s, was due to aerosol pollution reflecting sunlight. Some misleading claims about cooling come from cherry-picked data, misinformation, or misinterpretation of short-term trends. While a single year or region might experience a cooler season, the overall global average continues to rise, steadily and significantly. In fact, the 10 hottest years on record have all occurred since 2010. Some of the confusion also stems from history. Between the 1940s and 1970s, there was a slight global cooling trend. This was largely due to an increase in industrial pollution, tiny particles called aerosols, that reflected sunlight away from the Earth. Once air pollution was reduced in the 1970s and 1980s through environmental regulations, the cooling effect faded, and greenhouse gases once again became the dominant force. Since then, global temperatures have surged, glaciers have retreated, sea levels have risen, and extreme weather events have become more frequent. In the scientific community, there is no real debate about whether the Earth is warming. Virtually all climate scientists agree that it is, and that humans are the main cause. The real questions being asked now are about what comes next. How quickly will the climate change? What regional impacts can we expect? Can we reduce emissions in time to avoid the worst effects? These are the pressing issues driving research and policy today. In the end, while discussion and debate are healthy parts of science, the idea that we are in the middle of a serious dispute between global warming and global cooling is simply false. The data is clear, the trends are undeniable, and the consequences of inaction are becoming more visible with each passing year. The Earth's climate is warming, and it's a challenge that requires urgent global attention. Not long ago, people could still remember chilly winters with heavy snowfall, or unusually cold summers that made them wonder if the Earth might actually be cooling. These memories, while real, have sometimes sparked confusion and debate. Is the planet warming, or is it cooling? To the average person, the weather can seem unpredictable, sometimes hot, sometimes cold, and the headlines don't always offer clarity. But within the scientific community, the story has grown clearer and more urgent with every passing year. Back in the 1970s, there was genuine uncertainty. A brief period of global cooling from the 1940s to the 1970s, caused by high levels of pollution reflecting sunlight away from Earth, led a few scientists to wonder if a long-term cooling trend might be developing. At the same time, other scientists were sounding alarms about rising carbon dioxide levels and the greenhouse effect. It was a time of exploration, with data still limited and computer models in their infancy. However, as satellite monitoring, ocean buoys, and more precise instruments were developed in the following decades, the picture began to come into sharp focus. By the 1980s and 1990s, a consensus was forming: Earth was warming, and human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels, were largely to blame. As industries expanded and cars multiplied, carbon emissions soared, trapping more heat in the atmosphere. This wasn't just theory. Scientists around the world began recording measurable changes: glaciers melting, Arctic ice shrinking, ocean temperatures rising, and ecosystems shifting in response. The global average temperature climbed steadily, and heat waves became more intense and more common. Despite this clear trend, the idea of global cooling has continued to pop up in media and political debates. Often, these claims are rooted in misunderstanding. A few colder than usual winters or a temporary slowdown in warming can create the illusion of cooling, especially when data is cherry-picked or taken out of context. However, climate and weather are not the same. Weather changes day to day, climate is the average over decades. When scientists look at the long-term data, the message is unmistakable: the Earth is warming rapidly, and the rate of change is accelerating. Today, more than 97% of climate scientists agree that global warming is real and largely caused by human actions. Organizations like NASA, NOAA, and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have issued clear, repeated warnings about the risks we face: rising sea levels, stronger hurricanes, deadly heat waves, and widespread disruption to agriculture and water supplies. The debate is no longer about whether the Earth is warming, it's about how we will respond. Still, the legacy of the earlier confusion remains. Misinformation continues to spread on social media, sometimes fueled by political or economic interests. This has led to a public perception that there is still major disagreement among scientists, even though the science itself has moved far beyond that point. In reality, the debate today is not between warming and cooling, but between action and inaction. So, is the planet warming or cooling? The answer is clear: Earth is warming. The real question is whether humanity will meet the challenge with the urgency and unity it demands. The clock is ticking, and the decisions we make today will shape the future of life on Earth for generations to come. Conclusion: Earth is warming. While science encourages debate and review, the idea that there's an equal split among scientists about warming versus cooling is a myth. The evidence for anthropogenic global warming is overwhelming and growing stronger every year.